Hi everyone, this is Vishen Lakiani and with me today is Bert Goldman. Now in this teleseminar, Bert's going to be talking about his concept of quantum jumping. A little bit odd if you've never heard of it before, but here's basically what Bert's going to talk about. Now as you know, those of you who are listening in are probably familiar with Bert and his work. Bert is the 81-year-old man living in California whom people call the American monk. And Bert, at the age of 81, has been able to demonstrate amazing abilities, skills, and successes in a wide arena of fields. He has a website, theamericanmonk.com, with a large fan base, around 90,000 people. He has a blog that is one of the most visited personal development blogs online. He has several books out. He's an accomplished writer, photographer, artist. He seems to pick up new skills at will. And one of the things Bert talks about is how he actually is able to develop these new skills almost instantaneously, as well as how he's able to achieve success in so many fields when most people a quarter of his age would be struggling. Bert calls his ability quantum jumping. And in this teleseminar, he's going to share with you exactly what quantum jumping is all about and how it works. Bert, how are you today?
I'm fine, thank you. Nice talking to you, Vishen.
Thanks, Bert. I know it's been a long time since we've actually been on the phone, but I'm excited to be talking to you again. And I just want to admit right off the bat, because I know some of the listeners might be a little bit as skeptical as I was when I first heard you talk about quantum jumping 3 years ago. But here's what's happened, people. When Bert first started talking about quantum jumping, a lot of people could not accept his ideas. Essentially, Bert talks about the idea that multiple universes exist and there are multiple versions of yourself. And you have the ability to tap into these other versions to learn new skills. Now, it sounds a little bit out there, but over the last couple of years, there's been this flood of interest in spiritual topics such as the law of attraction. Of course, because of that hit movie, The Secret. And at the same time, there's been a flood of new discoveries and statements by scientists all around the world on the theory of multiple universes. And so now, going into 2009, Bert has decided that he's ready to come forth with his new idea. And it's something that he believes will change the way you are going to view yourself and your life. So, here's why you should be listening to this interview. Bert, it's good to have you on the line. Can you tell us a little bit about quantum jumping and what this is all about?
Yes, actually I've been doing this for many, many years. It's only recently that I've discovered that the quantum physicists, many of the scientific community, not only accept this but know it for a fact. And they explain it pretty good. As an example, just a little short kind of a vignette of one of the people who opened my eyes. I'd been doing it, but I thought I was the only one who would be able to do this. A fellow named Steven Weinberg. Steven Weinberg is a physicist. As a matter of fact, he won the Nobel Prize in physics, so he's quite a physicist. He really explained it best when he said there's hundreds of different radio waves being broadcast all around from distant stations. And we all know that in your office, your car, your living room, wherever you are, you can pick up these radio messages. But when you turn on a radio, you can only listen to one frequency at a time. The other frequencies are not in phase with each other. Each station has a different frequency, different energy. As a result of that, your radio can only be tuned into one broadcast at a time. Now, likewise, in our universe, we're tuned into the frequency that corresponds to physical reality, what we know. But there is an infinite number of parallel realities coexisting with us in the same room, although we can't tune into them. Now, those aren't my words. Those are the words of a Nobel laureate in physics. Now, there are many, many, many others who accept the same thing. However, they don't know how to jump into those other realities, so to speak. I discovered a way how to do it. And the very first time that I did it before a group of people, well, would you like to hear about that?
Well, yes. Please go on.
The first time that I did it in front of a group of people, although I've been doing it all my life, actually, as weird as it sounds, the first time I did it, I was 2 or 3 years old. I think I was 2.5 years old, but that's another story, perhaps for another time. I was in San Diego doing a class, and I was explaining parallel jumping. And it does sound a bit weird, I know. What do you mean you're going into another universe? Who are you going to talk to there? Well, in another universe, there's a Bert Goldman who's the King of England. There's also a Bert Goldman who's homeless. There's a Bert Goldman who does everything. Well, I figured if I could find the Bert Goldman who is successful at what it is that I want to do, then I could get some of the energy and perhaps even some knowledge from that person. I explained this to the class. They all thought it was weird. And one of the guys said, prove it. I said, what do you mean, prove it? He said, demonstrate. I said, well, I can't demonstrate because when I go into a parallel universe, I do it mentally. The quantum jump is a mental thing, but you're bringing back the information you need. I said, you pick out some skill that I don't have, and I'll develop it. How's that? Well, they all agreed. The class agreed. Well, if you can do that, fine. That's proof. What do you want me to do? Well, one thing after another, and finally somebody said, how about photography? Are you a photographer? I said, well, no. I mean, I could take a picture with a Polaroid. At that time, Polaroid cameras were popular. I said, but that's about it. I don't know anything about cameras or photography. Okay, become a great photographer. Well, I'm thinking, boy, I really put my foot in it. Well, if it works, it works. Let me do it. And I know it works. So I leave the class. I go back to my hotel room, and I do a quantum jump. Now I'm talking to the great photographer, Bert Goldman. And I imagine I see him. It's similar. It's an elaborate construction, but the best way that I could describe it at the present time is that it is a controlled daydream. Now, it's much more than that, but it's the only way that I can get you to understand it. And I saw a me, a photographer me. How do I know he's a photographer? Because he had his head underneath one of those black velvet things that the old-time photographers used to put over their heads when they took a picture, especially portraiture. And I said to him, hi, me, because it was me, the photographer me. I have to get some information and I'm becoming a great photographer. And I heard very distinctly two words, plant yourself. I said, what? He says, plant yourself. I said, what does that mean, plant yourself? I don't know what that means. Well, one thing led to another, still rather long, and I got some more words out of him, and that was take a lot of pictures. Take a lot of pictures and plant yourself. Well, it really didn't have any meaning to me at the time, and I came back to the real world. I bought a camera, and I decided to take a lot of pictures. Now, I was in San Diego at the time, and I went to the marina there. And I figured at the marina there's all kinds of great possibilities. And so I went out on some rocks because the view from the rocks was really fantastic. And as I get to the rocks, I'm slipping because the rocks are a little slippery. And I take my feet and I smash them down so that I won't slip. And all of a sudden I realized, gee, I'm planting myself, because that's what I did. I said, maybe that's what he meant, plant yourself, meaning stand in one spot. And so I planted myself in that manner, and then I took a lot of pictures. I took 130 pictures. I figured one of them has to come out. Well, I had the pictures developed from one of those 30-minute or 1-hour Photoshops, and I went back to my hotel room, and I laid all the pictures out on the bed to see if one of them would be a good picture. But as I was laying them out on the bed, something strange was happening. It wasn't 130 pictures. It was one picture with 130 different little pictures, like a jigsaw puzzle. And it was such a fantastic picture, I couldn't believe it. Well, I bought a mastic board, a foam board, and I glued all the pictures on the frame, on the foam board, and I took it back to the class on the next weekend, and they all looked at it, and they all agreed, boy, this really works. Now teach us, how did you do that? What did you do? Well, I'm going to leave that repartee there because that class was a dynamite class. I did teach them all. That was the first time I taught other people quantum jumping. But from that picture, I started to take a lot of other pictures the same way. And 6 months later, 24 of my photographs, my montages, as I call it, are hanging in the International Photography Hall of Fame in Oklahoma City. And I'm told they're still there.
That's amazing,
in Oklahoma
Bert.
City, go to the International Photography Hall of Fame. I used to sign my name Burton. I just used my first name there. You'll see Burton's over there. I believe I have a separate room just for my photographs.
You talked about using quantum jumping to absorb new skills. Now I'm wondering, can quantum jumping also allow you to, say, jump into a new reality? As you know, it's a pretty tough time right now. I mean, I just saw the reports. There's been the largest job loss in a month in the U.S. since 1945, and this was November this year. So, given the tough times people are in right now, can quantum jumping in any way be used to enhance one's life?
Absolutely. Let me tell you a story that happened in Cleveland, Ohio. I mean, I've got hundreds of stories like this, but this one just jumped into my mind. Her name was Sarah Zuniga, and she used quantum jumping to change her life. Sarah was a housemaid. She was making something like $265 a week. Her husband had a floor waxing business. She was fascinated by the concept of having other selves in other dimensions who are exactly like her. Same husband, same parents, same friends, same children, but it was really very successful. Well, she wanted to get into this alpha exercise to visit her doppelganger. Well, she visited the door. I won't get into the details because you have to have some preface material before you can really understand them. But suddenly, she saw her doppelganger in another universe. I mean, she was there. She visualized herself walking over to her twin. Her intent, of course, was that she wanted to be successful. She wanted to make $150,000 a year. But most of all, she wanted to be a decorator, not a maid. She imagined herself talking to her twin self. She reported this to me later on. She heard her doppelganger, her twin self, say, "Dress up houses for sale. Dress up houses for sale." She didn't know what that meant. She asked me what I thought it meant. I said, "I don't know. You figure it out because it's your doppelganger." I asked her, did she clean houses that were for sale? And she said no. And suddenly it came to her what the idea was. She wanted to be a decorator. How about if she decorated houses that were for sale? Anyway, she stood up in the class. There were about 150 people there. She asked, are there any real estate people in the room? And a number of hands went up. She said, I have an idea for your houses that aren't selling. I can dress them up. And they looked at her. What do you mean? She says, I'm a decorator, and I will go into the houses, and I will decorate them with the material that you have. She says, I've got a lot of talent. If you're interested, I guarantee those houses will sell. And she gave them a pitch right then and there. She really got motivated by her twin self because she was excited about this idea. Well, make a long story short, she wound up with 3 of the real estate people, got her houses, she charged them $500 a house to fix it up. It took her all day long, but what she didn't clean the house. She redecorated the house. She took all the clutter out of the house. She moved furniture around. She didn't bring anything new in. She just worked with what she had, and she turned it into a new place. Well, I could almost write a book about Sarah and her husband Peter, because Sarah wound up with more than she could handle. She hired 2 girls. And then later on I heard from her, she hired 3 more, then 5 more. Last time I heard from her, she had 87 women working with and for her. Her husband closed his floor waxing shop to come in with Sarah, and Sarah hasn't cleaned the house in a year. She oversees the simple decorating that her firm does. Lots of stories like that.
That's amazing. Now here's here's the thing again, Bert, and I'm simply voicing what I think people in the audience who are listening in might be having as questions. So this quantum jumping thing, it sounds amazing, but isn't it just like, say, intuition?
You could find a self of yours that was intuitive, and I gave you a method, a technique of doing it. Boy, that would be worth its weight in platinum, wouldn't it? Well, what if it is? I don't think it is. I think you're really going into another dimension, but it doesn't matter whether you are or not. You're getting the information, and it works.
Right.
It works. Just before, just today, this afternoon, I knew I was going to talk to you, so I did a quick jump myself. And I asked one of my doppelgangers, how should we close this off, or what should I tell these people that are interesting, aside from how to make a lot of money, and aside from how to better a relationship, and aside from how to develop new talents. And I heard my doppelganger tell them about high-level and low-level questions. What he meant was, to get the right answer to a question, you have to ask the right question. A high-level question is something that makes you think. As an example, when you do a quantum jump, you want to ask high-level questions. As example, asking someone, why do you smoke? Well, that's a low-level question, because you're going to get a low-level answer. Well, why do you smoke? Well, I just do. I don't know. Or I like it, or something like that. A high-level question would be, what would your life be like if you didn't smoke?
Hi, this is Alexander Williams. Thanks for listening to Part 1 of Bert's Quantum Jumping Teleseminar as part of your free introduction package. Keep your eyes peeled. Part 2 will be delivered to your inbox shortly. Enjoy!